Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of The Developing Counselor. This is episode 2 called Sex, Drugs, and Ethical Dilemmas. I'm going to be your host for today, followed by my co-hosts,
Jesse,
Giorgio,
and Alyssa.
And today we're going to have some great discussions. This podcast is surrounded by the overall general field of mental health. We're going to talk a lot about counseling. We might talk a little bit about psychology, some news, maybe play some games, and just kind of have fun with it. The focus of this is just for education and to enjoy ourselves and just kind of grow, not only as clinicians in the room, but for people listening, kind of help the community grow all together. So feel free to comment below and kind of use your own thoughts and ideas as the episode goes on and try to engage as much as you can. So without further ado, we're going to get on started. So I always like to start the podcast with what's one great thing that's happened between last recording and today. Who wants to start? Well, Giorgio, you're our guest today, so you weren't here for the first one. Anybody have something exciting?
Yeah, I could go. So this weekend actually was jam-packed full of things. But I got to go to a wedding reception for my friends who live in LA. They got married in May, I think, in Hawaii, and then they had a reception on Friday. And then today I went to a bridal shower for another one of my friends, and like the three of us are all in one big friend group. So it was really cool just to kind of like reconnect and do things together because we spent every day together in college. And so like, you know, we all went our separate ways, and then we came together, and we do this like maybe once every other year. So it was really cool.
Good.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Jesse, Giorgio?
I'll go.
Okay.
I went to a wedding yesterday of two of my, I would say oldest friends, but for a while. And it was nice. It was not as exciting as, you know, one would think, but yeah.
Oh, sorry?
No.
Congrats?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Lots of weddings going on this week.
It is September. It's wedding season.
Is this the month for weddings?
Yeah, it used to be like June and July, but now everybody wants a fall wedding. So it's September, October. Yeah.
Yeah, especially now with the whole barn farm type style. Lots of those are older, they don't have AC, so October, November is the right time to do that.
I did not know that. I've always thought about weddings, and I can't tell what season I'd like. I feel like a white wedding would be really nice.
Like a winter wedding?
Yeah. In like a heated building.
But but like then all of your pictures either have to be inside or have to be outside and you're cold. And I'm a photo
you're
person.
cold.
And like photos mean a lot to me. So like I picked out my photographer before I picked out my wedding venue.
Oh.
Yeah.
I never would have thought of that. I don't know. I don't know that much about weddings.
My mom's a photographer, so.
Did you use your mom?
No.
Oh.
No.
Well, why not?
Because she was like watching. Why would I didn't want her to work at my wedding, you know what I'm saying? But I did, you know, pick a colleague of hers.
Oh, I would have made my mom work.
Oh no.
You parented me throughout my entire life. This is your last time.
No.
Okay. Giorgio?
Yeah, I can share something. I played in a disc golf tournament today with a friend. I hadn't seen him since May, so it was really good catching up with him, and it was fun. We played well, so yeah, it was a great time overall.
That's really cool.
I've never played disc golf. I don't know anything about it.
So much fun.
There we go. Okay. I don't have anything to report.
Okay.
I didn't have a very exciting week. I worked. And my dog's toys came in. And they were really excited about that. And I was excited too, because my dogs are my babies. And they've destroyed all their toys from the last round. And I was like, well, they need toys, because they get, bored like any other animal does. And I knew they were getting anxious because they have started chewing on things that aren't toys. Like the mat in the kitchen in front of the sink. I don't know if anybody noticed that, but some of it's just utterly annihilated. And I know they were excited because Bryce was telling me that when he put the balls onto the table, because Ivy loves those orange, throwing balls. when he walked out of the room, she climbed onto the table, like onto the chair and then onto the kitchen table and then grabbed the ball.
They're so funny.
No, she's a little spider monkey. She really is. Yeah, I'm looking at you. Mm-hmm. She looked at me like, I didn't do anything. I'm pure. I'm wonderful. So, yeah. I was excited. And I know, and that makes me feel good because if she's that excited, she'll climb onto the table. That tells me they were a little overdue for toys. So, I feel pretty good.
Do you get like a bark box every month?
No, I just hopped on Chewy and blew through $100 and some bucks.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. I was annoyed too because, like, it came in 3 different shipments. The first box only had 1 toy. About, like, 18 different things.
But isn't Chewy like the Amazon of pet things? It's just multiple vendors. And
I always figured it was all at a warehouse like Amazon, so you grab all of it from one thing, but not one box that has 1 toy, 1 box that has 3 toys, and then 1 box that has 13.
Yeah, I don't know.
It felt like a waste of boxes to me, but you know what? I burned them, so I give it back to the atmosphere. I put a lid on the top so like pieces don't fly away, so I don't light my neighbor's house is on fire. I think.
Or you could recycle, but like.
Yeah, I mean it is recycling. It's a form of recycling, right?
No. Absolutely, it's like worse.
Oh.
Worse than not recycling.
All right. Well, thanks for killing all my dreams. It's great. Alyssa's over there. Ruined your day. I see. Alrighty. Now, what's one thing you wish you could have done differently, or something you could have changed? Something you could have changed.
I wish that I would have taken a break at some point this week.
Just like self-care break, or just like I need 10 minutes to go sit in the sun.
I'm just like always on the go. Like I'm never not doing something, and sometimes it takes me a couple weeks before I realize like the last time that I just sat down and didn't do anything. And so, yeah, I think that I probably should have just like sat down and not done anything.
Okay. Giorgio, is there something you could have changed?
I think so. So I guess something I could have changed a long time ago, but I'm now realizing that I should have done it differently. So it's kind of like realization moment. But so I'm training for a marathon in October, and I was running, but I wasn't working out with weights and things like that. And that's an important part of like strengthening and injury prevention and stuff like that. So I've been doing it for 2 weeks now with a friend. Just twice a week for like 45 minutes, and I already see the difference now that it's making on my form and all that. So I really wish I would have started doing that at the beginning now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. Kudos to you.
Yeah, no
I don't energy.
Disc golf tournaments and marathons, like, you make the rest of us
know,
look bad.
right. I'm over here like, I've watched 3 episodes of Game of Thrones this week.
That's part of my self-care, so.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Good for you. Awesome. Yesy?
I wish I would have got better sleep quality. That would have been great. Going to bed earlier, waking up earlier. But I didn't.
Preach, sister, preach.
I didn't, and I probably won't. So, yeah.
I don't want to bounce off you, but like I'm in the same boat. Like even when I try to go to bed early and I wake up because I have to get ready for work, I don't feel like I got enough sleep. It's like I'll put on after I wake up, I'll put on a timer for another 20 minutes. Then when I get up, I'll put on my work clothes, wash my hair so it looks like I showered, and I'll put on some deodorant and go to work. Like my sleep is just a little more important to me at the moment than me actually taking the time to take a shower, but that's okay. I don't sweat, so I don't smell weird. Plus my Old Spice Wolfborn.
We're learning so much today.
You know, knowledge is power and knowing is half the battle.
That's what G.I. Joe says.
Thank you. Someone that got the reference. Every time I make that reference, people look at me like I'm nuts. Jesse's looking at me like I got the reference, but you're still nuts.
I did not get that reference.
Oh, thank you, Alyssa.
I got you.
You're my hero. Alrighty. Oh, no. Do I not have... Oh, there it is. Alright. So... I want to get into today's news topics. Really excited to talk about these 2 today. I promise this week the topics and discussions will be more exciting than brain AI and other things that are difficult to comprehend. I'm actually going to be bouncing off some of the news articles from last week, so I'm excited to talk about that with you guys today. So let's get right into it. First off, Last week we brought up the 988 number. Jesse, you actually were not aware of the 988 number for the National Suicide Hotline and Prevention number. CNN actually came out with an article that gave me some further facts that I thought they were very interesting. So I thought it'd be really exciting to kind of tell everybody how much of a change this has actually been. I'm gonna turn my stuff. Okay. So in the article, it said that suicide is the second leading cause of death in the United States for people ages 10 to 34. And this is according to the American Psychiatric Association, the APA, something we are all very familiar with. Calls to the Lifeline increased 45% compared with the same time last year, and the majority of those calls were connected to a counselor, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Great. Last month, the 988 Lifeline answered, and to preface this released on September 9th of 2022, so this is like about a week ago. Mm-hmm. So according to this article, in August, the Lifeline answered 152,000 more phone calls, chats, and texts than in August of 2021, according to HHS. And the average speed to answer across all the contacts dropped from 2.5 minutes to 42 seconds. And for a frame of reference, that is roughly 4,800 plus more phone calls, text messages, and chats a day than the same time last year. So definitely a large increase in people reaching out to these services. Overall, rate in suicide in the United States has increased 30% between the year 2000 to 2018, according to the CDC, and declined in 2019 and 2022. Nearly 46,000 people died by suicide in 2020.
That was a rough year for everybody, though.
Yeah.
Not that it's like an excuse, but that was a rough year for everybody. But no, I mean, I have so many questions about these stats because, like, obviously it's great that people are using this hotline, like, people are calling in. But that many more calls, is it because people know the number now, or is it because that many more people are needing to use this service?
Could be a mix of both.
And it probably is. So, like, I do think that it's great, and I think, well, you know, we touched on this last week, that this is a wonderful thing that we have. It's a great resource. But then, like, how can we expand, like, mental health services so that way our suicide rates are not increasing and more people are not needing to use this service?
Right.
But also, I may have dove into that a little too far as you were talking about it.
I mean, that's okay. That's okay. But yeah, I thought that was quite interesting.
I felt similarly. I had a few questions about the stats because, you know, as we all know, you can say anything with numbers, you know, pretty much. First, I wondered if, you know, obviously they kind of pushed the fact that the number was going to change. I wonder if, like, in 10 years, things are going to be different. Like, it's going to be harder for people to even know about, you know, it's easier because it's only 3 digits, but
Right.
Are those rates going to be different in 10 years compared to now? Because, you know, everyone was on social media, you know, different government agencies were pushing the agenda on this, which is great. But I wonder if that has an impact on the, you know, people trying to call in, things like that. I also wonder, were they able to, like, was the infrastructure there for all those call increases?
I would say so. And the only argument I have is the fact that calls, chats, and the text messages, the speed to answer, so like the speed it took for somebody to answer the phone call went from 2.5 minutes to 45 seconds, which is a significant drop. So somebody that needs the services, instead of waiting 2.5 minutes or longer, they only had to wait less than a minute, which is a long time, but it's improvement. I'd take improvement.
And
Absolutely.
it is good, especially because I know that I've had an individual who, like, mentioned that they called the suicide hotline number and were put on hold, and they were like, what a slap in the face that I called somebody who I needed to help, and then they put me on hold. And I had never heard of that before. Like, it's not something I talked about very often, but yeah, I think that the speed increase is great.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Yes, I agree. Jesse, thoughts? No. All right. Okay. All right. So let's talk about weed.
It's a good one.
How's that for a transition?
Seeing where the drugs are coming into this episode.
Yeah, exactly. So the second one, it's not exactly a news article, but it's a article that I found that was released from Counseling Today. It actually released in March. So, weed marijuana, for the more official term, continues to be not going to say an epidemic, because views are differing between how you see it from a medical side or recreational side, so on and so forth. So the utilization of this particular plant is a growing engagement, and its popularity has skyrocketed, especially I'd say within the last decade. So this article kind of covers some of the boundaries and some of the differences on it. So just for some statistical information, medical use is legalized in 37 states. Territories of Guam, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands also have medical use legalized. Additionally, 18 states, including Washington, D.C., and 2 other territories, have enacted legislation to regulate cannabis for recreational or non-medical use. Kansas, Nebraska, and Idaho are the only states that do not allow public access to cannabis in any form, medical or recreational. It is entirely illegal.
The most boring states, in my opinion.
Okay,
but-
let's not respect to the people that are out there, but like,
Not because of that, but like,
Yeah,
have
but
you ever
like-
driven through Nebraska? Like, have you ever driven through Nebraska?
no, but I've driven through Kansas, and it's got like a population of like 9. Like, there was points where I drove past a house that like you weren't like. First off, parts of Kansas, it's flat, and there is no grass. There's no tree. It's just nothing. And you'll drive past, like, you'll be on like a freeway that's going for miles upon miles, and there's like an old janky train track to the side of it that you can't tell if it's 100% used. And then halfway down your trip down this highway, there's like a driveway that goes to a house that's kind of in the distance that has one okay-ish tree, and you can't tell if the house is abandoned or is still occupied. And then it's nothing for a lot longer, which, in terms of medical services and whatnot's kind of a concern. Like, if you're in that one house, like, what if you have
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
life alert?
Help, I've fallen and I can't get up.
You know, like,
yeah.
is that your terms of, like, that's my thing, because, like, and I thought about that when I was a younger, it's probably one of the reasons why I'm in this field, but, like, we would drive all the way to New Mexico to film on Scout Ranch. We'd do hiking and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, when we would travel, I would just, it would be nothing, and then I'd come across a little dinky town, and then there'd be nothing, and then there'd be the occasional house. And all I could think in my head was, what do you do for fun? Where do you get supplies and materials? Oh, that was exciting. And what do you do for medical services? Like, I kind of hope you have really good first aid kits in your house. Like, you know, it's a genuine question. And, like, a lot of people, and again, this might be stereotyping, I can't assume, but, like, when there's not a whole lot of vegetation, you're probably not a farmer. I don't know what your income is, but, like, helicopter? That's at least a $10,000 fine right there. At least that's how it is in Ohio in this area. One trip on the helipad going up to Toledo area is a $10,000 fee.
I think this is something that we should look into. Like, I'll research this in my free time, and I'll come back with some answers.
Kind of curious. All right. Fair enough. Anywho's so this talked a lot about how marijuana is continuing to increase medical and recreational. One of the things that it pointed out is that statistics shift. There's like a good set of empirical data, I'm going to put quotes on empirical data, that states that it is very beneficial for things like glaucoma and for anxiety or, you know, arthritis. And I've seen a lot of, like, Parkinson's? The one with a lot of shakes. I've seen that a lot of people that use marijuana, they're able to kind of come down steady, which kind of shows that it does help. In that instance, you can see the positive responses, but there's also a lot of data that goes against it and says it does not do a whole lot of good, and if anything, it might be even considered harmful. And what I thought was interesting is that some states still see this as a Schedule 1 drug. The U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, the VA has done studies that show medical marijuana can help individuals with PTSD, yet it will not endorse its use for VA patients.
Interesting.
This is due to federal law, but the VA has a heavy influence on federal law. I'm not saying they're not, but I also haven't heard the VA trying to push federal legislative change. So I definitely would like to know if there's any movement on that. But I thought it was interesting that they have studies that are showing it has a value to it, but it's not endorsing it. And at the same time too, for a lot of the states that do have medical ability legalization, they're still not endorsing it. Why?
I don't know. I've been thinking about what you said about the value aspect of things, and when it comes to that, I think it's tricky because, for example, if you want to stay awake, meth it's great, for that. So it adds the value, or it does what it's supposed to do, and it's great for that if you want it to stay focused. And that Adderall, fantastic. And so my question is, anecdotally, I guess, marijuana is great. It adds so many things, and people do it because, it's great, and for many different reasons. How do we look at the things like some, emotional addiction to marijuana, or other things like that, or the whole gateway drug thing, or, things like 99% THC that's, that people use and burn and all that kind of stuff. How do we, it's so complex, and like you said, the data is difficult to analyze in that situation. How can we trust it? Can we not trust it? How much is being used and biased for agendas and political things? It's tricky.
So, yeah, absolutely. So, I want to touch a little bit more on that, but I have a couple more things that I wanted to throw out there. So just a second ago, I did mention that there's kind of conflicting information. So the Department of Veteran Affairs did studies that showed medical marijuana can help individuals with PTSD. The American Psychiatric Association, the APA, again, something we're all very familiar with, issued a position statement in 2019 saying that it will not endorse the use of medical cannabis for the treatment of PTSD because of the lack of any credible studies demonstrating its clinical effectiveness. So the APA says there is no definitive clinical evidence stating it, but the VA says there is definitive clinical studies showing it. So that's that's where it gets kind of weird for us. And the reason why I bring it up, especially because I've actually ran into this recently with my clients, is I've had people ask about medical use. I have clients that already have their medical cards and whatnot. So when they ask you hey, I've really been struggling with this, what do you think about it? How do you respond?
I mean, that's a good question, and I think in a counseling setting, it's not our place to impose our own thoughts and our own opinions onto our clients. And so at that point, it would be a matter of, helping them determine if that's the best choice for them. Is it legal in the state that we're practicing in? So in Ohio, we do, it's legal for medical use, so that's not something that we have to worry about. But I think that would just be kind of almost putting the ball back in their court. We have to help them come to their own conclusion. We can't be oh, I think that's a great idea, because you might be all for it, but that's not our place. But I have many thoughts floating around.
So, and that's what I was thinking, because the article said that counselors should take a non-confrontational and supportive approach, but it also says that as clinicians, it is outside our scope of practice for us to recommend the use of medical cannabis. But at the same time, with the information that we do know, can we tell them tidbits of information about medical cannabis? Or recreational, for that matter.
I think that we can help them find information, but we cannot give them information, if that makes sense.
So we can give them like article links and whatnot, but we can't tell them. For example, studies are not coming out and showing that majority of dispensaries, whether medicinal or recreational, don't know the difference between sativa and indica, which are allegedly supposed to have two different effects. And I'm sure many people have talked to individuals in their everyday life that have participated in this activity, and everybody has a different response. So I've had clients ask me, like, what do you know about indica and sativa? And I'm like, no, nobody really knows. I know what the definition is itself. One of them's supposed to be like a get up and go, like you're feeling productive, you're feeling proactive, and the other one you're supposed to kind of sink into the couch. I also wanted to bounce off of you, Giorgio. For medical use, what I do know is that for medicinal, oftentimes the ratio for THC percentage versus CBD percentage is different. Usually it's about 70% THC and roughly 30% CBD, whereas recreational is usually that 99% if you're doing a concentrate.
Right.
So, and that's one of the other things too that I don't think studies are looking into enough, is that CBD also is showing a lot of like psychological properties that might be beneficial, but I don't think people are, like, we just say it's marijuana and you just jump to THC, but we're not thinking about there are other chemical components inside of marijuana itself that have certain properties that can affect you differently, just the same as like an ibuprofen, or like you have like a pharmaceutical drug you get prescribed, you have those side effects. Like, yes, it is that drug, but it's made up of many things that affect you differently.
Well, and I wonder too, like, with the increase in awareness of medical marijuana, you know, if you have a medical marijuana card, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are utilizing medical marijuana. So I think it would be hard to regulate and know exactly what people are using too. And then that goes into, like, sometimes it's laced with other things and we don't know. And so, you know, it's hard to get accurate studies, I think, and accurate statistics in regards to this topic, because there are so many factors that go into it, as with like many other things. But, you know, I'm not going to say that all marijuana is bad or that marijuana is bad. And, you know, I think that it does have good qualities, and I think it's a good Band-Aid for conditions that are chronic and don't have, you know, other Band-Aids. But as far as like understanding and being able to say like it does this, 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 and this, like, we're never gonna know.
Fair enough. So I want to kind of bring it into a more real perspective. You're right. And like, you know, everybody has their own personal views of marijuana, and I agree with you. I think there are some great qualities to it. I think there's a lot we still have yet to learn as to long-term like response and how it affects our bodies and whatnot. But regardless of how we feel, what do you do if it's in the practice?
What do you mean?
I was at my practice, and it's so weird. It was simultaneous. Like, I don't know if it was like weed day, woo, you know, but as I'm walking through the hallways, I'm about to take a client into a session, the hallway just, like, I'm not going to say reeks, but smells of pot. And I'm like, someone smoking in here? I don't know. We're a small private practice. Like, it's not a giant building. A client coming out of another clinician's office had a little pen or a one-hitter, and they hit it in the hallway walking out of the building.
How do you know that it wasn't, you know, an e-cigarette or whatever?
Oh, no. It was pot. We knew. Oh, yeah. And it was later found out that the client has their card and was utilizing it on the way out. I have no problem with that. I don't. Please, I would say, like, wait until you maybe get out of the front doors. But what got me was that I went into my session and I still smelled it. I'm like, that's interesting. It's not in the same room. It would have went away by now. Halfway into the session, I asked the person I was with, I was like, did you partake before this session? And their response was, Yeah, I did. I figured you were going to kick me out. So simultaneously, immediately, I ran into 2 different instances of people utilizing it for medicinal purposes, and I was in a weird and by that point they were still very coherent. I was like, listen, I'm gonna let this slide for now, only because this isn't really focused on you. You're able to comprehend. If you come in again, I'm gonna ask for you to leave. I wanted to just respect that. I wasn't about to be like, yo, later. But my thing is that how do you go about addressing with your clients without offending them? Like, you cannot come in, you have to wait until after, because some people use it a lot more frequently than others, and it's sometimes you have to be very careful of the way you go about it without offending or making people upset, because some people believe and feel that it is one of the only ways that they have found that can kind of take away the pain or keep them off edge. And for some people, counseling is very, very intense, and sometimes they, you know, you might feel like I gotta hit my pen before I go in and whatnot. So like, how, as clinicians, how do we ethically combat people coming in or, you know, utilizing it? There's a lot of interesting faces.
I think everybody has.
Wait, hold up.
We were all like on the edge of our seat.
I know, literally.
Wait, hold up. Wait. Where is it? All right. Tell me about what you think, Alyssa.
Okay, I'm gonna need this music to turn off real quick, and then we'll just go in order. So I have a couple thoughts. Number 1 would be you have to set the precedent ahead of time. So I think that that's something that you would need to address in an intake session, and that way you don't even have to ask them if they utilize, what they do, how they partake, what their belief system is. You know, you can just say, in this practice, like, you are going to get the most out of it if you come in and you are engaging in counseling services. Like, with that, we would ask that you don't come in having had a drink or having utilized other substances such as marijuana, yada, yada, yada. And I don't think that that's intrusive either. And I can say that probably for certain just because, you know, I've gone to counseling myself. And that was something that was, I had to sign a paper that was like, if you're currently using drugs, like, you need to stop.
See, and that was my thing, because, like, I have to, you know, I respect the ethics and whatnot, and I know that in a counseling session, you cannot be under any form of influence. But that's the part that was a little weird for me, is because as we were walking to our sessions, someone else, not a part of my, you know, clientele base, utilized the substance on their way out of the building. I couldn't tell that my person had also partaken, so it felt weird that halfway through I was like, I need to address. I feel like I would have liked to have done it in the beginning, but like, listen, you know, respect. I understand you have it for, you know, the purposes that you have, but we can't run a session with you being under the influence. But I couldn't tell because someone else, and it meshed. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what made it weird for me. So, like, in those types of very strange situations, do you even, I guess, do you not bring it up? But, like, I don't know. The whole thing was kind of weird for me. And all this is very new. Like, I'm an intern. This is all a educational learning experience. And, like, we were cool about it, but it was different.
This raises a question for me because, you know, I don't know if you assumed or if they, I guess you can't ask, but let's assume they had their medical marijuana card, right? How do you distinguish, like, them being under the influence and them using, like, anxiety medication and other things like that, where obviously those are legal, but, so for example, I have I call them residents because they're incarcerated, and it wouldn't be appropriate for them to be called clients, but I have some residents that are under, you know, bipolar medication, and they're doing fantastic, right? So we're not really talking about bipolar. Maybe we're talking about, okay, if you weren't on medication, or if you were to stop using medication, how would you feel? How would, you know, all that kind of stuff. But right now, they're doing great, and so we're tackling other issues in any, you know, whatever. And so for me, it raises the question, you know, because it is legal in the state of Ohio now, how do we conceptualize it in a way they're under the influence compared to other psychotropic medication that they take? They are completely legal, and they're also potentially under the influence. It's changing how they feel, right? Obviously for the better. And so I don't have the answer to that, but I think it's just a challenging question that came up for me. Like, is it hindering counseling at that moment when they're under the influence of marijuana, or is it something that it's getting them into the door to be able to be counseled by you?
I think, just real quick, it would be important to know if they drove there, because it is illegal to be...
My clients walked.
Okay, so that's different, right? So then I think
Good
that's a
question.
good question for you, right? Like, if they got there, and the only reason that they got there is because they had smoked beforehand, like, okay, great, but if they drove there...
That's a problem.
Yeah. And that would be something that we would have to... I don't think necessarily report, but we would not be able to let them go home, or they would have to get a different ride home.
Well, and the other thing that made my situation unique, too, is mine was a couple session, but only one of them utilizes. So, like, if they drive there, the other one just has to, like, drive home. But sometimes you're in that situation where it's individual counseling. Like, how did... Well, you got here... I can't just let you go, because, like, if you get pulled over... Yo.
Right. So then it would be important to maybe call, like, their emergency contact, and they would have to get a different ride home, or... I don't know if you can keep them there, but... I think Jesse had some thoughts on this, too.
Yeah. Okay. So, I think at this point at your practice that you're at, you need to have some kind of meeting and draw up new policies, do something like for intake, do something for policy over the whole, private practice in general. If that becomes like a problem at community health, they need to do that too. So just have a general policy for the entire practice. That'll avoid some of these problems. Like did you before came in? Did you do it right after? Did you do it in the hallway of the? Why would you? I'm not judging. I kind of am, but I'm not. But you shouldn't do it in the hallway. Anyway,
Jesse's a school counselor though, so doing like marijuana in the hallways is a little bit different at Jesse's location.
You don't do that. But no, it probably has been done. But probably. But I don't know, just have policies written up that are specific to your organization or your practice that kind of address these things. If they take a while to address before you can write them up, and that's what's going to happen. But and maybe looking at, like, are they under other medications too? That would be a good thing to look at too. But that's it's just interesting to look at. You'd have to do an overall look about your clientele and things to decide what your policies would be, but that would help avoid a lot of problems. Yeah.
I think too, you should know after an intake session whether or not they have a medical marijuana card, or if that's something that they utilize regularly. Like, that should be a question that you're asking. So at least you knew.
I did know.
Right? Because it's different if you never asked that question, and then they come in and you're like, oh, wait, I have to backtrack a little bit. Like, maybe I already have this established relationship, but I'm going to have to go back and realize that I didn't ask these questions. And so now I don't know if what they're doing is legal, but then also I don't know, like, and then you have to set that precedent. So I think that there are a lot of things, like, there are a lot of factors into this.
I agree. I just thought it was, I came across the article, and within the same week, I ran into this situation at my practice. And I to be honest, I don't think even I would call it much of a situation. I would just say it's something that needed to be addressed.
Yeah.
But I was like, I wonder what everybody else on the podcast is going to say about
that's
this.
why I brought up policy changes, because if you just talk about them in the policy, then you won't have to, it won't be a problem in the future, or even if it wasn't, you don't have to, it's like, hey, this is our policy. Like, it is what it is. You can't before, you can't in the hallway after, you can do it in your own home, like.
You can do it out, like, you choose to do it outside of our doors, but inside the building, we ask that you refrain from doing it.
And, so much time before your session, or,
And, like, that's the thing, too, is, like, I guess I'm happy that you're that comfortable with your counseling, that you're willing to
I'm
do
not
that
sure if it's
in our...
comfortability or necessity. It probably depends on the client, probably.
Yeah.
I think, too,
I get what you're saying, though.
a real quick, like, no smoking sign on the outside of the door
Yeah.
could change some of that. Like, and then you don't have them smoking inside.
Yeah, and it could say, like, no smoking regardless of, you could... Because when people see no smoking, they think cigarettes. But if you say no smoking, and then,
Like,
any,
no
in
smoking,
any form,
no vaping.
Well, just say no smoking in any form or etc.
Right.
That's pretty
True.
short and to the point. I'm still stuck in the fact that it was like right after their session and it was like in the building. So I feel like, I don't know, that bothers me like a lot. That's like disrespect to the people there.
Yeah, it bothered
It's
me.
disrespectful.
It bothered me a little bit only because
I just can't get past
I think I got lucky. So if I had a client that did not utilize marijuana or had like negative feelings towards marijuana,
Or there
walking
were minors.
or they're minors,
Yes.
going through the hallways and smelling that would be a problem. My
That could've
clients,
been a
on the
big
other
problem.
hand, were like, "This smells fantastic," and I'm like, "Great! I'm glad you're taking this from a good, like, positive perspective because this could be a problem
Yeah.
in a different form of situation." So I think
Like-
we got lucky, blessings, but it's definitely like it's something that would need to be discussed.
Yeah, like if that happened and then a parent and their minor came in and then they made a big thing about it, that could
Right.
have been a
Yeah,
problem, a
I
big
agree.
problem.
There is an issue for me when it comes to medical marijuana where I know it can't be smoked, but it can be vaped,
Or eaten.
or eat. Well, but eaten, like, it doesn't smell. You're not smoking it. Now, I know we have limited data on how, like, it impacts the body and stuff like that. But we have, increasing data on, like, the impact of vaping and all the metals in your lungs and things of that sort. To me, it seems ridiculous that we're allowing medical marijuana to be smoked in any sort of way, and that's not any like judgment on vaping and stuff like that. People still smoke cigarettes and they're allowed to do that. That's
Right.
great, but they don't smoke cigarettes for medical reasons. Like, we don't allow people to snort like Adderall for ADHD, right? Like, they don't.
I mean, that's a good point.
I guess they could in their own
Yeah.
home, but it's not a allowed procedure. And I don't know, to me it seems counterintuitive that people supposed to use it. Like, if we really want the stigma to go down for people to be able to use medical marijuana for all the benefits, I know there's pills. You can even do gummy bears. That's fantastic. Like, I wish all medical things were through gummy bears. Like, that'd be great. But why are we allowing why are we allowing people to smoke
agree.
it? We know it's not great, for many. That
take
raises
my-
the question for me, because that would put you in a different situation if they just ate a gummy bear on the way out.
That's
Like,
true.
who cares?
That's totally different. Like, that wouldn't have like impeded on anybody else.
Yeah.
besides
Absolutely.
them. Yeah.
No, that's a really good point.
I didn't think about that.
Or like if you're just sitting there eating a cookie, like don't offer it to somebody, but
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Who cares what you're doing at that point?
Yeah. And yeah, like if we're talking like after the session, but yeah, like before the session, maybe don't.
Mm-hmm.
If it is impeding on your ability to participate in
Right.
your
Yeah.
session,
Or if you're driving.
or if you're
and-
driving, yeah. But afterwards, you can take the cookie home. Yeah, sure. Like, yeah. Or gummy bears. Yeah.
Because you're not normal vaping at the end of your session inside either. Or,
Yeah.
vaping other sort of... I bet you could vape opioid medication for pain too, right? I mean,
Oh.
I'm sure you can.
I'm
if
sure
you
you
can
can. I do not know.
marijuana,
I'm
like,
sure you
I,
can.
I don't know.
I don't see the problem with
I
doing
wouldn't be
that. I mean, people
surprised.
do
Yeah.
heroines.
Well,
So many
I
different
don't know.
ways.
You know what? Opioids are strong. Inhalants are instant bloodstream. So I think that would be a problem because it would almost be the same thing as snorting because it's going straight into the bloodstream.
Right.
Whereas the pill, it can have like either an instant dissolve or it can be like a timed release. If you smoked an opioid inhalant, wow.
Yeah.
It'd be strong. Like, I don't know if that, but I understand where you're going
That's the
with
problem
it
I
too.
have
Is
with
like,
it,
because
like-
like you could still like, if I had like my like, what's a really strong opiate? I can't think of Xanax. Like if I could have like my Xanax gummy worm.
I don't.
As soon as you said gummy worms, I was thinking like, wow, if I could take like penicillin and a gummy
I
worm,
was
like,
thinking about
I would get sick
suppositories
all
or
the
like,
time.
like other
Yeah.
things. Like how could we change this? Like,
That I was just thinking like that might be a problem for like the FDA because that would cater like gummy bears and gummy worms and
That's
stuff.
true.
That would cater more towards like children and they don't like anything that
I can still get gummy vitamins though as an
Yeah.
adult.
I know. And I remember there were some vaping juices that came out that like the label looked very like Candyland type, and then the FDA was like, or whoever was like, oh heck no, like no,
That
we
makes
can't,
sense.
like that can't look childlike or advertising to children, so that's a no. So they had to change the label completely, change the name completely.
That's a good
So-
point.
I
That's
just,
a good
That is
point.
a
I was
good
just
point.
thinking like Haribo headaches. You know, like the Haribo or Haribo like
Yeah,
gummy
yeah,
worms
yeah.
or gummy
So,
bears or.
If you know, if that in the future, if like let's say they could say it's possible to take things that way, there might be just like a gummy vitamin type
Right.
looking. It couldn't be like a candy, otherwise that could be a problem
For sure.
for for lots of reasons. But
What are-
like, oh mom, I ate a bunch of your gummy worms. Like that's
That's
a problem.
no, that's true.
Like,
Yeah, you'd still have to have like the
Yeah.
child-proof locks on them and whatnot, but
that's a whole different,
yeah.
a whole different.
Well, and
But
that,
good points.
well, no, see, my other thing too is that, and this is, I know we're kind of veering off, but like that was the end of my news segment, so we're kind of just in general conversation, so just don't care. Yes, it does kind of like go after like it could be directed towards children, but at the same time, I don't remember what pill it was, but when I was younger, I had like asthma and I also had really bad acid reflux. I don't remember what pill it was for which one, but I took this pill and it tasted disgusting. Like there was points where it was so like there was a couple times I gagged and almost threw up, but I usually had to toss it to the back of my throat and instantly down it with some water like a chaser, and I'm like that. Why aren't many of our medications like pumpkin spice or
No,
cookies
for,
and
for
cream
that
latte?
very reason.
Do any of you
No, but
remember
like
the-
that's my thing is that like if you're getting prescription and it's coming from like your local CVS, like you're gonna get the person that needs it is going to get it. So why not give it a little bit of flavor? Like
It's
I'm not
so
trying to
like-
make it fun, like Starbucks pharmaceuticals.
It's
like
it's
we're
a-
not trying to go into
It's a
that.
safety thing. Some of those things are made to taste bad on purpose. It's a safety thing. That way, if somebody that's not supposed to be tasting it, taste it, they're gonna be like ugh and not finish it or not. It's a safety thing.
But do you
Huh.
remember the bubblegum flavored?
That
Cough-
stuff was awful.
No! Oh my gosh! Okay, so
That's
I was sick all the time.
Bubblegum flavored
I
cough
Or like-
medicine?
or like,
all the time when I was younger, and I think it was penicillin was bubblegum flavored,
I
and then
had that
everything
as a
else,
kid.
Oh.
everything else was like cherry, and that was gross.
I can still like
But-
imagine I taste the flavor of it right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
literally
I'm
same.
like, yeah.
I don't know what if you had the same because you're from Italy, right? Yeah, so I don't know if you had bubblegum flavored penicillin.
I have to say,
Antibiotics. It tasted like bubblegum.
I have to
yeah.
say,
Spaghetti
we
flavor.
were in Italy like for vacation like a month or so ago, and my wife got a little sick, and so we went to the pharmacy and get like cough syrup, and I cannot describe what this flavor is, and it's delicious, and I drank some of it because it brought me back years, and I was like, oh dude,
Was it hot pink?
I'm so
no, it's clear. It's so
okay.
syrupy. It's absolutely delicious.
I'm so happy. Listen, I'm happy I'm
I
not the
think-
only one because that
I
dark blue
think that confirms
Mucinex,
what I said.
like that dark blue Mucinex cough medicine, I think tastes like it's probably equally as delicious as Pepto-Bismol. I know a lot of people
hate
probably think I'm
Pepto-Bismol.
disgusting for that. I think it tastes pretty good.
It's
Maybe
just like
I'm just
chalky
picky about my
peppermints.
medicines. I think it all tastes terrible. Like, ooh, the bubblegum stuff, cherry.
Probably not good that I like the taste of cough medicine.
You're not alone though. I'm not one of those people, but you're not alone.
Okay.
So you're being catered to, and that's why they sell it to you. I
Yeah.
think she makes a great point.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So ones that taste a
Oh, they
certain
got
way
me.
on purpose.
They got me. That's what it is. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
And I'm lucky enough to hate all of it. So.
I'm not sick anymore.
This
so
might-
it must have worked.
It might be sick to say
Yeah.
this, but I feel like you're missing out.
I don't
It's
know.
kind of nice
I'd
because
rather
like when you
have-
are sick, you want it to taste good. Like you don't want it to taste like death. And if you
Or
like the taste of
Robitussin.
Mucinex
Oh,
or whatever the
Robitussin.
one you has when you got in like Italy,
Yeah.
if you're not feeling very good, it's gonna be nice to take something that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
taste like disgusting pill that makes you want to gag, but it tastes like
And that's-
strawberries
Yeah.
and rainbows.
That's probably why it does. It has a. That's probably why that they make it have a flavor. I would say.
So I was supposed to when I was growing up, I had vitamins to take, and they weren't gummies, but they tasted like blueberries or some fruity things.
Ooh.
And if I felt snacky, I would ate like 12 to 15 of them while I did homework. Now this is vitamins, but we know that like the liver and
Your body
other
was,
organs,
like,
they have
you
to
know.
like process them, and it's not so great for it. So I'm
No.
just saying,
It's
like you made the
not.
point earlier about the Xanax or whatever opioid medication there is, spice latte thing. That would not be okay great point. Like,
Well-
what if you have it there and you're like, oh, this tastes fantastic, let's pop 3 more.
Yeah.
Well, now you overdosed and
Well,
you're,
yeah, and if you have like, let's say
that's fair.
let's say like you're already predisposed to addiction based on like your DNA, and then like, oh, this tastes really good. There you go. You're already
Yeah.
partially hooked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My melatonin is like that. It's like blackberry flavored,
Ooh.
and there are times where I'm like, do I really only need one?
I took my cousin gave me
Yeah.
like melatonin gummies, and they were like orange flavor, and I was like,
They're
can I have like
so
4
good.
more? They were low dosage, but like that's one of the reasons
Hey.
I not for a long time considered it, but that's the reason why I got my melatonin pills. They taste like nothing.
But
I
you
just
hated
don't.
the one that I gave you?
Dun, dun.
Did I?
Yeah, you said it tasted terrible. It was like cherry. That's
Well,
that's
pick-
beside the point.
Pick better melatonin gummies. I
No,
don't-
those
I
were
don't
cheap.
remember.
They were off-brand.
That's why. That's why.
They lasted like a whole year.
Like when I eat a melatonin gummy, I want to feel like I'm like frolicking through a meadow. Of
No,
just
I want to
flavors.
sleep.
I don't want to hallucinate. I want to go to bed.
I
I'm not
just
saying
wanna
hallucinate.
sleep.
I'm saying feelings wise. Like I want it to. You want it to be a good experience.
No,
No,
I
I
want
wanna
to
go to
take
bed.
it, and then 10 minutes later, I want to be sleeping.
So has melatonin ever messed with you in other ways? So like
Yes.
when I first took melatonin, I had the worst nightmares. I won't go into too much depth, but the nightmares were gruesome and they felt very real. The next night, I slept like a baby, and I doubled my dose.
Interesting.
The third day after, it kept me up all night.
But did you take it the next day?
Yes, same dosage
Interesting.
amount as the night before. I went from 5 milligrams, nightmares. 10 milligrams, slept like a baby. 10 milligrams again, up all until about 4 a.m. I got about 2.5 hours of sleep that day. It was the worst day ever. It was even worse than the nightmares one. And the following day after the nightmares, I was so uncomfortable the whole day because all I thought was, I did so many things in my nightmares that I would never do or think or consider. Why were those in my mind? Like, is that's like, questioning all the, like, is that buried in my unconscious?
Are you supposed to take it every day, though?
No.
You're supposed to take it for like a week, and then you don't take it for a week, and then, or you kind of wean yourself off or whatnot.
My bottle says as needed, so I don't know.
Yeah, I take it like maybe once a month.
I take it once a month.
Because I get insomnia like once a month.
See, and
it's
that's
just like a random thing.
I don't take it frequently either, but there during that first round, I was like, you know what? I'll stop. It was on my way out after leaving my practice. I stopped at the local drug community store marketplace, and I was like, yeah, I'll try this. Why not?
Well, that might have been your first problem.
I was from a pharmacy.
Oh, okay.
I
I'm
even-
just thinking, like, in the town where your internship is, there's a Dollar General. Like,
No, it wasn't from there. Like, I even talked to the pharmacist dude. I'm like, hey, like, this is what I'm dealing with. He's like, okay, do you want immediate release? Do you want timed release? He went through everything, so I kind of got guided.
Okay.
I can't speak on his training and expertise, but I figure he probably knows a little bit something about something. I'm hoping.
It works at our pharmacy at some training.
But it was weird.
I'll
What is
just
he
stop to
chewing
watch
on?
the dog eat the floor.
What is he chewing on? He's got something in his mouth.
Ace.
This is the one thing. Ace. Oh, take that out of his mouth, whatever it is. Oh, God. Ace.
There you go.
Thank you. What the hell is that?
It's a squeaker.
It's a squeaker. Mother.
As Bryce said last week, the dogs are not sponsored.
No, they're also not very intelligent. You remember the game Pong? The 2 bars on the side that go up
Oh,
and
yeah.
down, and then the ball kind of bounces back and forth.
Yeah.
Well, when it first starts out and the ball's going really slow, that's his brain cell, and that's his only brain cell, and that's pretty much it the whole day. It's just kind of a
Aw.
slow, casual back and forth. He's a good boy.
While we're talking about animals, I'm going to switch topics real quick, and let's talk about emotional support animals and how we feel
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So, in my job that I have currently, like, I am in charge with helping people get set up with emotional support animals on a college campus. That's, like, one of the things that I do in my role. And something that I'm running into is that everyone says that they need one, right? And I get it. Like, your life absolutely would be better if you had a cat in your house, or if you had a dog in your house, or if you had a ferret. I don't know why, but anyway. And so I guess I just kind of want other people's opinions, like, what should be the parameters for having an emotional support animal? What does that look like?
Teacher.
Yes, Rizzy.
I feel like we are blurring the lines between emotional support and
Pets.
no.
No?
Service.
No. Oh, God. Separation anxiety. Like, dogs have separation anxiety. I'm now starting to question whether or not humans have separation anxiety. And it's the other way around, because there's a difference between needing that emotional support versus, because, like, I love my dogs. I do. They're my babies. And all I think, not all I think about, but towards the end of the day, a lot of the times, all I think about is coming home and, like, Oki at the back door, just really excited to see him. He's, like, scratching the window, and, like, Ace is doing the same thing. And, like, sometimes I think to myself, damn, I wish I could just take you guys everywhere with me. Like, I'm bonded. Is it a difference between emotional support and being bonded to your animals?
So I wonder too, like, our generation is kind of like the tail end of the latchkey kids.
I don't know what that is.
I don't either.
So the latchkey kids, they're like the ones who would come home after school and like your parents might not have been home. Like you can get, like so you could watch yourselves, right? And it was a big thing for our parents' generation, or at least my parents. My parents are young compared to most people my age. And so I wonder, because a lot of what I hear is that people are lonely, and so they need an emotional support animal because they're lonely. And I'm like, I love to be alone. Like, I love my cats. Don't get me wrong. Like, my cats are my favorite things. But I just wonder if it's because they're not used to that. Like, we all took care of ourselves or with our siblings. So
I think it is.
Oh, I was going to say before Reggie started talking that
Sorry.
I remember when I was, like, I think it might have been the beginning of grad school, and I had a couple friends that were in undergrad still at the same university, and one of them had a emotional support rabbit, and I thought that was amazing. And she really needed it because she had several diagnoses that she needed that, and I that was good for her to wake up in the morning and take care of it. And but as soon as people found out that she had one, they were like, "What can I do to manipulate the system to get one myself?" And I was like, "That's kind of messed up." Yes, people are trying to manipulate it. People, like, this was like 5 years ago, and like all of my friends were like, "I need this just because I just want this animal." And I'm like, "Well, is it gonna help you?" And they're like, "No, I just want to be able to have an animal on campus." I'm like, "That's not a good reason to do that."
Right.
Like, but for her, it really helped. So it's not like it doesn't help. It helped her. So anyway, go ahead.
The question I have with this is, like, we all know that having an animal is great for people who do want them, and that's fantastic. What's the clinical support that we know it has? Like, is there any research out there that supports in any way the kind of animal that needs to be considered support animal? Like, what are the characteristics of this animal? Or are we just, like, handing out animals because it feels good to take care of someone else, or it feels good to have a companion? Loneliness, great, you have an animal, maybe we should teach you, like, social skills, right? Like, this seems like the problem is completely different.
Right.
I'm all for it, like, giving people animals, like, on campus and stuff like that. If you do that, just don't call it, like, animal, like, support animal, right? Because that's not what's happening.
Right.
So I don't know any of the research out there. I don't even know how extensive the research is out there. How probably super hard to do any sort of clinical research when it comes to that. How do you measure the benefits of an animal, like, support animal stuff?
And that I want to point that out. I'm glad you said that, and I'm trying to find the link online, but I can't. But at one point, one of the airlines had a list of banned animals, and one of them on there was emotional support mosquito.
Also,
the fact that they listed that means people have emotional support mosquitoes when you need a mosquito.
I think it was Delta Airlines wouldn't let an individual bring their emotional support peacock onto a flight.
Oh my god.
But so just a little bit of background too about, like, the idea of an emotional support animal. They are emotional support animals and people who have them are protected under the FHA, which is the Fair Housing Act. And I've read through all of that because it's, part of my job to allow individuals to bring emotional support animals onto campus. And so it's not very clear, because in the FHA, it literally states if an individual's life or experience would be better with the presence of an animal, and it says domesticated. And so domesticated to me means cat, dog, hamster, ferrets in some cases.
Rats.
Rats. I wouldn't say peacocks. I wouldn't allow, I don't know, wild animals.
Your emotional support ant farm, you're not really on board with
I
that
think
one?
that you could contain an ant farm, right? Like if you have a goldfish, I don't know, but I think the word domesticated was in there. But at the same time, like, whose life wouldn't be better with an animal present? And so
I know
if it's protected under this Fair Housing Act, like, this is the problem that I'm running into. I'm like, why don't we just, everybody gets one? Like,
I'm almost wondering if, I work on 504s for kindergarten through 8th grade, and I kind of wish I wouldn't because that's not part of what I'm supposed to be doing as a school counselor, but I do. Little plug there.
Suspense.
I wish it shouldn't be part of my job. It should be part of the school psychologist job, not my job. But it is. Anyway, don't fire me.
Don't fire me.
I hate doing it. Don't fire me.
we don't know what school you work at.
Yeah. But so I wonder if it should be because a couple years ago Ohio changed it to where 504s require a diagnosis. They absolutely require one. I have to have a note from a doctor. I have to have like a screenshot of the diagnosis document. Because if we get audited and there isn't one, then we get in trouble.
Yeah.
So I almost wonder if that sort of thing there should be like a list of certain diagnoses, and they should be able to provide that diagnosis documentation. But I wonder if that like makes it too limited, and then people would have problems with that.
So I do require documentation.
Okay.
And it is across the board for like my job title in most universities, but it doesn't say how extensive it has to be. So I know some people are pretty strict on it. But when it comes to my job description in other areas of my job, I'm not strict on it because like people are coming to me because they need assistance to get equal access to things on campus. And so I'm not going to be like, oh, well, your documentation uses this word, but not this word. So that's where I'm running into like my problem with emotional support animals is like, I don't feel like I can be a hard ass on one aspect of my job and not the rest. But at the same time, like some people, their documentation will just say like pet therapy. What does that mean?
Pet therapy?
That's a real thing that I've seen. And like, what? I mean, we're counselors. What does that mean?
Well, I would think equine therapy or hippotherapy, depending on which term you use.
But, at that point, you have, like, an animal that's been trained, like some sort of trainer that's been trained. Like, your cat is not trained. Unless it is, then it's great. But I also think, from your role, I'm thinking about if you require a diagnosis, how easy it is to give like an adjustment disorder diagnosis or like generalized anxiety.
Right.
Like it's so broad right now. There are great benefits to that broadness and some drawbacks to that. But I can see for you and your department to say like, you know what, I don't think we can give this, benefit to you. Like that puts you at risk of a lawsuit because then they can go to a psychologist anywhere and say like, see, I have generalized anxiety, like I need an emotional support,
right?
And then now you're fired because because you made that decision. Like it almost would put you and your job, you're trying to help people in jeopardy just because you're like, I don't think you really need it. And then there's that, I don't want to say, what's the term? Like spoiled person that just wants it because they want it.
Right.
We know there's people that actually need it. But again, like we said, anyone would benefit from an animal. Like,
and everyone is taking 5 milligrams of something.
I wonder if, like, maybe it's not about who, maybe it's about what animal. Going back to that, like maybe it's about what animal.
Right. And
like
so
limiting that list.
And that's another thing that I've talked about. And for the most part, like, I think an emotional support animal is like dogs or cats. And so when it comes to that, like, are you trying to bring an 80-pound dog on campus? We're probably going to say no, because that's not fair to the animal. But if you're trying to bring a 5-pound cat, okay, cool. But if everybody comes in and everybody has paperwork, because who doesn't have a counselor?
Yeah, but then you get into like the
difficult.
weird. Oh man, see, it becomes more and more gray.
Yeah.
Because now it's not necessarily fair that you're only allowing certain size dogs, but at the same time there are certain breeds that are less intelligent than others. So like for example, like if you take like a poodle, poodles are exceptionally smart. They're one of the most exceptionally smart animals. But if you introduce a teacup poodle, it changes. And
But-
they're not, they're a peanut.
But if you live in
They're
a
a walking
12 by
peanut.
13 dorm room, and like, okay, so
A
also,
teacup poodle feel like a half a mile wide room.
but I think that we need to define like service animals and emotional animals are completely different, and that emotional support animals on a college campus aren't allowed to leave the room unless it's a dog and they're going out to the bathroom or they're like walking on sidewalks.
And that's not fair to the dog.
Correct. So if you have an 80-pound dog in a 12 by 13 dorm room, that's not fair to the dog. So that's where like you have to limit some of the breeds that are coming on campus, especially because like, you know, a lot of people live in singles too. You know, so if you, and then your room shrinks by 4 feet, like you've got 8 by 10, like, and so, you know, you have to limit it at some point. And also some animals, I think ferrets have to come in pairs. Like they can't be by themselves.
It depends. I had a single ferret and she did just fine. She was super happy, but I think that was because I had other pets that interacted with her.
Rats are like that. I don't
Yeah.
know. Did you?
So then, like, if I allow an emotional support rat, but then that rat needs an emotional support animal, then it's a whole new thing.
It's a big circle of gray.
Jesse,
Exactly.
When you got your one ferret, did was it immediately introduced to the other pets, or was it?
So, we got her because of a family member. She was only like maybe 6 months old. Family member broke up with their significant other, and I really liked the ferret, and they said, well, we want her to get taken care of, but we don't want to see each other. And anyway, so I mean, it was immediate. Like they said, come pick her up, and it was immediate. And they didn't really know what to think of each other, but in the end, it like worked out, and they like played with each other and stuff. But if it was my choice, and I knew, like, let's say I knew the information that she needed another ferret, I would have provided that for her immediately, but I think she got some of that social aspects from my cats, and that helped her.
I thought she was a cat.
I think so, because that was the only other animal I think she'd ever seen, probably, besides other
Because
ferrets.
like adaptability is a big thing. Because like Ivy grew up with a pit bull and a German Shepherd. She plays with big dogs like she's a big dog. And like the other two didn't. So like when they see big dogs, like Oki like releases his anal gland and like freaks out. He accidentally released his anal gland on my neighbor. I didn't know about it because they got out. Oh man, I apologize. I didn't feel that bad, but like that's kind of unfortunate. But like it really just depend on the environment.
Yeah.
Nature versus nurture. Like it comes back into that.
I think maybe nature-wise, maybe they do need a partner, but environment-wise, she didn't need another ferret because of other animals. So I don't know. I think that's like going back to the whole point of should you let somebody have 2 rats because they need it. I don't know the answer to that.
Right. And I guess I should probably be thankful that people are coming and trying to go like the correct way of getting an emotional support animal, because when I was in undergrad on a college campus, like I had my cat in my dorm and I just hid him there. Like he just lived there because he was a cat. And then, eventually I got found out, but so on one hand I'm like, well, at least they're coming and they're trying to do the paperwork and they're all like all of these things, but then also is like there has to be a limit somewhere, right? Like there has to be some sort of regulation and guidelines, and it's just weird. But then it also expands outside of college campuses, like people who are trying to get apartments. Like I don't know how many times I've seen an apartment listing where it says like no pets, but then technically it's allowed under the Fair Housing Act, but I have 3 pets and there are 2 of us, so like then what do we do?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, any last thoughts, questions, comments, concerns?
I don't think so. I think if anybody is listening and they have, thoughts on anything, I would love to hear comments, and would love to kind of engage with people. We're working on getting an Instagram page set up, so be on the lookout for that. Other than that, I think we'll LPC you later.
All right. Thank you so much for that really cute little line. Giorgio, thank you for joining us today. Hopefully
thank you for inviting me.
Join us again. Hopefully we'll be able to come together next week and maintain the schedule. We haven't exactly decided yet if we're doing weekly or bi-weekly. So again, even though the episode 1 was the pilot, we're still kind of learning, making some changes, but we appreciate everybody joining us and kind of bearing with us as we learn and kind of grow and prosper like beautiful little butterflies. Strong like wool, but pretty like butterfly. So, thank you all. Have a great week and make good decisions.